Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. And I normally say, as always, my main man Reggie, but unfortunately Reggie's not here today. I'll be flying on this podcast by myself, as Reggie is taking care of some family matters. Uh, he mentioned some of that on the previous podcast, so uh, I wish him nothing but safe travels, and him and his family are on my mind, as he's going through his family issues that he's dealing with. So wish him nothing but the best through those difficult times. Um, but we're going to look forward, look ahead at this weekend's matchup against the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are 1-3 versus obviously the NFC East leading Washington Commanders at 3-1. The Cleveland Browns did have their one win against Jacksonville. They lost to Dallas, the New York Giants, and Las Vegas Raiders. But before I kind of get into that, I kind of wanted to touch base on a couple things. If you're a Washington fan and have been for a long time, and you've been diehard, and suffering through every single game, every single week, every single year, there's within the Washington fan base, you see obviously a different attitude, but people are starting to come out of the woodwork. And they're trying to jump on. That's right. You see fans that you haven't seen or heard of, Commander fans that faded away for years, and now all of a sudden they're coming back. You see media who have done nothing but trash on Washington. Even Washington has done some things right over the years. They've done nothing but trash them. All of a sudden, we're the darling of the NFL right now. And I don't want to call out any of the national media people, but there's some there that I can't stand that are now actually liking what the Washington is doing. And it all centers around Jayden Daniels, obviously. And I don't want to take any credit away from Jayden. Jayden has he's put in the work. He's got the skill. He's doing everything professionally to be successful in this league. But we really need to stack this, right? Jayden Daniels, for all the work that he's put in, Cliff Kingsbury has handled it perfectly, right? You look at what he did in the preseason games, what he did in week 1, week 2, week 3. He isn't just throwing him in. And it's a building process. It's a comfort level. Okay, we've given you more on your plate. Let's see how you handle this. Okay, here's a little bit more on your plate. Here's a little bit more on your plate. It's not drinking by the fire hose. It's not going out there and trying to throw 40, 50 passes as we saw last year with Sam Howell. That was utterly ridiculous. We all saw that from the beginning. We knew that was a setup for failure, and that's how it turned out. It's I'm not trying to compare Sam Howell to Jayden Daniels, but the offensive coordinator didn't help Sam Howell out at all. And to give Kingsbury, to give Kingsbury credit, I got to give Dan Quinn credit, right? Dan Quinn put together this staff and went out and got Kingsbury. And Dan Quinn, considering, when you look at what we did week 2, 3, and 4, Dan Quinn is a defensive guy, right? Defensive guys tend to be conservative on their play calling, conservative on when to be aggressive in the game. And it's been the opposite of that, right? How many times has he gone for it on fourth down? And there's been a couple times at certain parts of the field where you're like, ooh, I hope this works out. I don't know if we should be going for it. There definitely been some times where it made sense, but there's been a few times where it was iffy on whether he should go for it or not. The fact that Jaden Daniels has been successful definitely helps encourage that. But a lot of times you don't see that on defensive minded coaches. And then again, to stack on top of that, Adam Peters went through the process and hired Dan Quinn. Adam Peters is also largely in charge of putting this roster together. Whether you want to talk about Jaden Daniels, whether talk about the offensive line, who there was some concerns with, but through 4 weeks, they've done well. They've done very well, both on the running game and giving Jaden Daniels time to pass and giving him some lanes to run. It's one thing to hold your block for a moment or two, and then somebody gets around you. Last year, we were seeing people come through, and it looked like there was no blocking whatsoever. That is not the case this year, even when Jaden Daniels does have pressure. And again, I got to give Adam Peters credit for that. To give Adam Peters credit, I got to go up to the top to Josh Harris. Again, this is stuff that we've covered before, but we're all looking at Jaden Daniels and saying this kid is incredible, which he is. His success is because of Josh Harris going to get Adam Peters, going to get Dan Quinn, going to get Cliff Kingsbury, and collectively doing the evaluation and going to get Jaden Daniels. From a team perspective, they're doing things the right way. We'll see if this continues. There's no indication that things are going to totally fall out. We could have a loss this week. We could have a loss next week. But the direction and the approach that they are taking is exactly what you want. You couldn't write this out much better. They resisted up to this point, at least, of going out and picking up that star big name player. They're putting together a core team, going through the draft, building a youthful team that they can at that point start adding pieces, whether they continue through the draft or whether they go get free agent. We've talked about the amount of cap space that they have moving forward. They have a lot of flexibility, and when everybody is in sync with each other, from Josh Harris all the way down to Jaden Daniels, things go much, much smoother. And when you come across a hiccup or two, or a player or two that doesn't meet the expectation that you have, it's easier to deal with that because everybody else is in sync. Everybody else is doing what they need to do. And I just kind of want to give the entire staff, pause for a moment and give all of them credit. But coming into Washington this week are the Cleveland Browns, led by Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I know there was a lot of people in DC that were interested in Deshaun Watson when he was leaving Houston. Now, to be fair, at that point, there was no of the allegations that he had that he, obviously was out of the league for a year because, but from a playing perspective, he was a top 4, 5, 6 quarterback in the league. He was doing some with his legs, but his arm and reading the offense, he had Houston rolling in the right direction. But they decided to go another direction instead of paying him, and Cleveland gave him, the guaranteed contract. Fast forward a few years, and Deshaun Watson didn't have a good year last year, and he is, I'll say, borderline struggling this year. Through 4 games, he hasn't thrown for 200 yards yet. he has 3 interceptions already to 4 touchdowns. So that's not where you want to be um, through 4 weeks. Um, the offense has not scored more than 18 points, even in their win. In their win, they scored 18 points. Their other games have been 17, 16, and 15. So, they're right in there uh, at what 15 to 18 points consistently out of 4 games. They're And then you add on to that their running game. Their running game, they've only rushed for over 100 yards as a team, not as just a running back, but as a team, they've only rushed for over 100 yards one time. And Deshaun Watson had 20 of those, and they had 125 yards. So whether it's through the air or running, and obviously you can see by the points that they're not putting up, you can see how much they are struggling. Um, and when you look at them on paper, it makes you scratch your head. I mean, even going back to last year, they did have Chubb that was injured early last year, and was out for 3/4 of the year. I think it was either game 2 or 4, somewhere in there. It was early in the year. Um, but they've got Jerry Judy and Amari Cooper as their wide receivers. Nice solid receivers. Most teams would be happy with one or both of them on their team, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked. Um, and and so there's even rumblings of Deshaun Watson, um, of them benching him, having him sit. Uh, it seems awfully crazy. You got Jameis Winston on the sideline, holding the clipboard right now. But you want Jameis Winston to come in instead of Deshaun Watson, and maybe they're desperate because they've been struggling when they think that there's talent all over the field, but just not putting it together. Um, their defense in past years, or even as I looked at this game over the summer, and you're trying to do your predictions, you're like, I don't know if that offense is going to get better or not, but that defense is going to be tough to deal with Washington. And while they are still a solid defense, they're not the top 5, top 7 defense that they were last year and really the last couple years. Myles Garrett has been injured, and he's questionable for this week coming up. I don't know whether he'll play or not, but they're not that dominating defense yet this year. Now they gave up 33 points to the Cowboys, but they held New York Giants to 21 points. Again, Giants aren't a team putting up all kinds of points anyway, and they held Vegas to 20 points. So their defense is decent, but again, it's a very solid defense. It's not a dominating defense at the moment. Um, so we'll see what Washington does with this. Um, there's a lot of rumblings if you listen to it. I mentioned about rumblings with Deshaun Watson, whether he should be playing or not playing. There's for week 4, there's even reports coming out of players' frustrations already. Obviously, when you think that you should be better or have a better record than 1-3, there's going to be some level of frustration, but it's not just the record; it's how they're playing and not moving the ball much at all. You know, their receivers, nobody's had a 100-yard game yet this year, and I mean, if they did, they would have more than half of the yards because, like I said, Deshaun hasn't even thrown for 200 yards yet. Um, but because of Deshaun Watson has so much guaranteed money on his tied to the salary cap, it just puts that much pressure when things are going bad. They've got this year and 2 more years of 46 million guaranteed, and they're not getting close to that, right? I can definitely understand their frustration. Um, for Washington coming in, thankfully we're fairly healthy. I don't think Austin Eckler is going to be back this week. I don't think. Um, I should have looked to see if he's going to be ruled out still or not. But considering that they ruled him out so early for the game against the Cardinals, pretty much the next day, um, it leads me to believe that the concussion was not an extremely mild concussion. So he may be out this week. Hopefully he'll be back after that. But overall, we're not that banged up. And from an offensive perspective, I think there's definitely some big gains that we can get this week. I think we're going to continue to run the ball like we have. I think Washington is they're top five in rushing attempts. I want to say that they were number three. They're rushing the ball at about a 55% to 45% passing the ball. I know some people thought when Cliff Kingsbury came in, it was going to be pass, 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 pass. If you went back and you looked at what they did in when he was at Arizona, it was about 50-50, just like it is now, a little bit more run heavy. But what he does is he mixes it up, right? He goes downfield. He has no problem. If you're at the 20-yard line, he's going to try to use all 80 yards of that field from sideline to sideline to make the defense cover. And we're starting to see some of that, right? We didn't see it as much in week one. We saw a little bit more in week two, a little bit more in week three, and now we're seeing there's more pass attempts beyond 10 yards, and with success, right? When he's hitting Terry or other wide receivers, it's going to continue to grow and go from there. It wouldn't surprise me this week that we see that. While Jaden Daniels has been running, most of his runs are for 4 yards, 7 yards, 3 yards, just enough to pick up that first down, maybe a few yards more. And I'm not saying it's going to be this week, but at some point he's going to bust one, right? He's going to, it'll probably be one that he goes up the middle type of thing. Everybody's out and he just takes off and it's a foot race. We would love it to be this week, but we shall see. And this past week we saw Washington's defense play a little bit better. They gave up too many yards rushing, but what they did do, especially in the second half, was they consistently put pressure on Kyler Murray. We talked about it on the previous podcast. They put pressure on him and they contained him. Kyler's a scrambler, right? He'll roll out and something breaks down. He'll take off and pick up 5, 10, 15 yards, no problem. He was held to one rushing attempt for 3 yards. Can't ask for anything, better than that, really, on that type of quarterback. And again, give Dan Quinn and the defensive staff credit for putting in the game plan, and not only putting in the game plan, but having the self-control to not over pursue, to not leave these big running lanes for Kyler to shoot through when it's an obvious passing play. And a couple of he was sacked 4 times, and a couple of those sacks were because of coverage. They were coverage sacks. He was looking. There was nothing there. You saw him try to take off to run. There was nothing to run, and somebody got to him. Washington was doing a lot of 4 and 5 man rushing, but nothing. I don't recall anything beyond one of the linebackers blitzing. This week, as of this point, that I'm doing this podcast, they have their right tackle, center, and left tackle all questionable. When you have 3 questionable, probably at least one of them is going to be out. Maybe 2, maybe 3. If they have a couple of their starting offensive linemen out, and that offense has already been struggling to run, struggled to put any yards in the air. This could be a good day for the Washington defense. Something to piggyback off of last week. Take advantage of the weaknesses or the injuries, and lick your chops and make hay. It is an opportunity for the Washington defense to take that next step. It doesn't mean you're going to be like that against the other teams, but you get into the good habits of holding your lanes, good habits of coverage, good habits of when you're in a zone defense of rotating and moving over and doing all those things. And if they're able to put more pressure on Watson, there's an opportunity for a pick or 2. So we'll see how all that plays out. I mentioned earlier about how much we were running the ball. A lot of our drives this year are just that. They're drives. It's not 2 plays and a touchdown. And so Washington is towards the top of, I think they're 5th actually in time of possession in the NFL. And that is when we did it with the Giants, I'm sorry, but of course we were just putting up field goals, and all of a sudden now we continue to move the ball, and most of those field goals are turning into touchdowns, and we're hitting the upper 30s and 40 points. I don't know that we're going to get there again this week because we're playing a defense that I think is better than that, but I don't think it's out of the realm to think that we're going to be in the mid 20s at least. And if Cleveland is not able to get out of the teens, that's a 7-10 point margin to win. There's no guarantees, but Washington is a 3.5 point favorite. So if you haven't made your house payment yet for the month of October, just hold on to that. Call your bookie. Call Vinny. Call Guido. Maybe it's a chance to double your money. Don't take my advice. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just telling you there might be an opportunity. You see a good stock on the market that is an opportunity, you invest. It's an investment, nothing more, nothing less. But don't listen to Knucklehead Ken. I will not be refunding any money. This is for entertainment purposes only. But I did want to have a quick podcast here and just go over this. I know normally Reggie and I have some banter going back and forth. I'm giving him a hard time about something ridiculous, or he's giving me a hard time because one of us is going a little further with their opinion than the other person, and further might be good, further might be bad. But we tend to keep each other in check. We agree on a lot of things, but once in a while we're out there. One of the things that Reggie and I discussed today was the Raiders wide receiver Adams. uh, supposedly being put out there on the market, and they were targeting a second round pick. I've seen a handful of uh, media procrastinators, projectors, projecting who might be available as I stumble over my words here, but Commanders on a few of them are there, and it's because of the success that we're having, right? If we lost this past week, the Commanders probably wouldn't even be on there. But with three in a row, and the way that Jaden is playing, people want to put that up there. Obviously, the Jets with his connection with Aaron Rodgers in the past when they were both in Green Bay is a connection, and that they're trying to expand and get going on their offense, especially after the past week that the Jets had they laid an egg on week 4. But Reggie and I both, after our conversation, we both felt like a second round pick was too much. He Adams will be 32 by the end of this year. He's got a decent contract that he still has I think 2 years on. I went and looked at it, but I just forget the numbers. And his approach to the team, his approach to is the opposite of what Terry is, right? Terry McLaurin is a team guy. You never see Terry, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. And it doesn't mean that Terry doesn't want it, but he's going to put the team first. He had a very average day this past week against Arizona, and if you saw some of the videos, he was over the moon, excited and happy after the win. I mean, he was running off the field, jumping and cheering and celebrating. And sometimes win or lose, if a wide receiver isn't much into the game, but you still win, there's receivers out there and other players at other positions that they're happy they won, but they wanted to be the main attraction. And I don't know that Washington needs or wants players like that right now. Not with the chemistry that they have. If you start telling me I can get him for a 4th round pick, 5th round pick, I know that that may be wishful thinking. But if his stock value drops based off of his age, based off his salary cap, based off of his him as a person and how he conducts himself, you drop down to a 4th round pick, you might have me interested. We did pick up a 3rd round pick by getting rid of Dotson. So we pick up a 3rd for Dotson. We give away a 4th for Adams. Talent on the field, we're way ahead, right? But are you ready to handle that baggage? I think we have a solid team, solid group of characters that would ensure that he toes the line and maintains a winning attitude. But again, what are you willing to do? And Adams has basically said from the beginning, from day one, they want to build through the draft. So a 4th round pick is you take that away, and I'm not saying that it's not worth it, but it's an evaluation you have to pause and think about, rather than maintain the direction that you're trying to go. But we will see how it goes. I meant to reach out to Reggie and get some information from him, because I believe it's that time of the show. What's your name? What's your number? What's your name? That's right. That's right. What's your name? What's your number? It's normally where Reggie and I discuss how we feel going into this game. Where on a scale of 1 to 10 do we think that Washington will win? 10 means it's pretty much a lock. A 1 means there's no way we're gonna win this game. Um, you know, as Washington has won 3 in a row, um, whatever team that you're facing, whether it's Kansas City or whether it is um, Jacksonville, as an example, or your number can't help but be a little bit better than what it would have been in week 1, week 2. And it's growing, but I think there's talent on Cleveland, and that talent it can gel at any time. I'm not saying it will, and I'm not saying it will this week, but there's enough talent there that at some point, a couple times this year, they're going to get it together and have a good game. Um, I don't think it's going to be this week. Uh, I think they're coming into Washington at a bad time for them. Again, I've talked about how inefficient their offense has been. They're struggling. There's a little bit of bickering, I'll say bickering or unhappiness that they're actually voicing, things that normally stay in the locker room, or you just keep your mouth shut. There's things that are getting out and leaking out, and you can just see their body language on the sidelines if you've seen any of their games, especially like in the fourth quarter when things just aren't going right. There's one thing to not be happy about the results, and there's another thing where you're basically pouting. And I think there's a little finger pointing. You're at week 4 and there's already finger pointing. Um, Washington could be catching them at a right time, and if Washington puts it on them, there could be an implosion in Cleveland. Um, I think Washington wins this game. I think it may be close for a while as Washington feels out and figures out what they're doing on defense. It's a good defense. They're going to try to mix it up for a young quarterback who hasn't seen a lot. It's not that Jaden Daniels can't handle it, but he may have a time or two where he scratches his head and goes, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that. I hadn't seen that yet." Um, I think he'll quickly be able to adjust, get over to the sidelines, and Cliff will talk to him and make the adjustments, like he's done throughout the season. Um, but I think somewhere along the way, Washington gets it together. They whether it's a couple drives or a couple broken plays where they score big, they put this game where it needs to be, as far as a little bit of comfort level. A two score, a touchdown and a field goal, a touchdown and a you know 2-point conversion type of thing. Um, and with that being said, my confidence level is a I'm sorry, a 7.5. As a solid, as Reggie would say, it's a strong 7.5. You know, and I'll be honest, I don't get much higher than a 7.5, just because the NFL is the way that it is. Any team can beat any team on any given Sunday, as they like to say. Um, while I am on board, I'm enjoying this as much as any Commanders fan out there. I just need to see a little bit more. I need to see a little bit more each week. Each week, I'm enjoying it. I want to just you know be able to just run and not worry about anything. But because of the past 20 years, we've thought that we were in the right spot multiple times, and then the rug gets pulled out from under our feet. Uh, I don't see any indication on why that would happen, outside of some major injuries or something like that this year. But you never know. You never know. I don't have a track record of success yet with Washington, but I will be in Washington at this game. If you see me walking around the stadium, if you see me in the parking lot, if you see me anywhere, please stop, say hi, say, "Hey, aren't you one of the knuckleheads?" Absolutely. I'd love to meet you, shake your hand, uh, get a picture and I'll post a picture on our show here and on our Twitter account. But reach out to us on Twitter, reach out to us and let us know what your number is. And until next time, peace out, knuckleheads.